All right, in this video, we're making something from the Disney Parks Cookbook, and it's kind of surprised I haven't made it already. And it's the gray stuff. Here's the picture. I think I had mentioned some pages were falling out of my cookbook, and this is one that fell out. But don't worry, I did get a replacement. Anyway, the gray stuff, if you're not familiar with it, is from Beauty and the Beast. It's mentioned in the song Be Our Guest. Lumiere tells Belle to try the gray stuff, that it's delicious. And it's something you can actually find on Disney properties. I know I've had it at Magic Kingdom a couple times. It was at Be Our Guest, and I know they have it at Gaston's Tavern. I've also had it in Disneyland. And it's kind of like a whipped cookies and cream type pudding thing. Really simple and easy put together, but I'll talk more about that in the review. But here is some clips of me putting it together. Here is step one, pretty easy. I just took some milk, I put it in the bowl, and then I took my instant vanilla pudding. I added it to the bowl, and then I whisked it until it was smooth and slightly thick. Now I'm going to let this sit in the fridge for 1 to 2 hours until it's firm. Next step, I have chocolate sandwich cookies, aka Oreos, in a food processor, and there's a very specific amount it tells you to do, so I put those exact amounts in there, and I'm going to process these until they are pureed. That's how you make cookie crumbs. All right, so I'm going to put these into the vanilla pudding. And now it's time to mix these together. All right, so now what I'm doing is I'm taking some whipped topping, a container of that. I'm going to fold it into the mixture. Okay, one last step. I got this mixed in with the cookies, but it's not quite maybe as gray as you would think. So this says to actually add 3 tablespoons? Yep, 3 tablespoons of instant chocolate pudding mix to it, which I'm assuming is going to give it more of the gray color so that we can call it the gray stuff. All right, so here it is all mixed together. Now it needs to go back into the fridge for at least another hour, and then we can pipe it into something fancy if we want and eat it, or just eat it by the spoonful. Here I put the gray stuff into a piping bag, and I'm piping it on cookies. The recipe calls for piping it on a scalloped cookie, which I found like a scalloped cookie sandwich that I did, and I also just did an Oreo. And now I'm adding the edible pearls on top. And there was the gray stuff putting together. As you saw, it's actually really not too difficult with the puddings and stuff. I think the most complicated part is if you choose to pipe it in that fancy shape like they kind of have it in the picture and put the edible pearls on it. You don't have to do that. I just did that, on a few cookies and because the recipe called for it. But for the most part, when we finished eating it, we just ate it out of the bowl. Then it was done. We just ate it that way. It was fine. So let's get into the rankings and reviews a little bit. And we'll talk a little bit more, a couple things on this, other thoughts I have on this. And the first is the ingredients, and that's, how hard are they to find? How expensive are they? And I want to say a 1. You could give it a 2 only if you're determined to do the scalloped sugar cookies. Like it calls in the recipe to get like a thin scalloped sugar cookie and you pipe the icing on. I didn't have a super thin one. I used that, I used an Oreo in one, and then I used the other one that I had just to find like a chocolate scallop thin cookie, which I had before. Like when I went to Disneyland and had the gray stuff, they did that. It was on like a chocolate scalloped cookie, and it was very thin, and it was kind of piped on that, and there was like, I think, a cherry in the middle. So finding those chocolate scallop cookies is not easy unless you wanted to make them. So you could rank the ingredients a little bit higher, but overall, just to make the gray stuff, because if you don't care about the presentation, you just want to eat the gray stuff itself, it's a 1. Everything is simple, easy to find, will not cost you a lot of money. It's just basically pudding and, chocolate sandwich cookies, aka Oreos, and some milk. Difficulty level on a scale of 1 to 5, I'm going to give this a 1 as well. It's really simple. You just put everything together. Again, maybe a little bit more difficulty if you decide you want to actually pipe it, but you don't need to enjoy this dish. You can just make the gray stuff. Don't worry about the bells and the whistles. And then would I make this again on a scale of 1 to 5, with 1 never and 5 absolutely? It was a 5. It was really tasty. It was really good. I kept alluding to, instead of cookies and cream, when I was a kid, I had something called dirt dessert that my mom would make. And it was basically, she took pudding with like Cool Whip and stuff, and she would take some crushed Oreos or chocolate sandwich cookies, crush them up, and she kind of layer it in a bucket. We used to use little, like the little castle, like sandcastle buckets or little beach buckets that you get with the shovels. And so she would layer it, and then, you know, sometimes you put like gummy worms and stuff in it. And so it kind of was like called dirt dessert because it kind of looked like dirt, you know, use a little shovel, scoop it out. That's what it kind of reminded me of. When I was tasting, all I could think about was dirt dessert. So if you know what dirt dessert is, that's what I'm talking about. This is just kind of an all-in-one. Instead of like kind of layering everything in a trifle bowl, just kind of mix it together and enjoy it. But either way, it was really delicious. It's definitely a Disney classic. Like if you've never tried the gray stuff when you're at Disney World, you have to do it at least once. And this is a really good way to make it at home and simple and easy. And yeah, it was a hit in our house, and definitely be making it again.